A couple years ago, my husband wanted to give me an MS t-shirt for my birthday. All he could find, though, were brightly colored t-shirts with big graphics, like a smiley face given two middle fingers, and words like FUMS. Isn't there an option for a simple, stylish t-shirt that spreads awareness with kindness? That's when I created Spoonful of Strength, shirts that are inspirational, motivational, and stylish. You can find us on Etsy, Instagram, and Facebook at Spoonful of Strength. That's Spoonful with 2 L's. Enter code PODCAST for 20% off anything in the shop. Welcome to Spoonful of Strength, a podcast for people with chronic illness and the ones who love them, where we talk all things chronic. Here's your host, Rachel and Tina. Welcome to Spoonful of Strength. We are glad that you're all here to join us today as we have another wonderful interview. Today we're talking with Michelle Robinson, who has primary ciliary dyskinesia, and she is joining us all the way from Northern Ireland. And she's going to talk about her diagnosis and the treatment and her daily life living with PCD. So how are you doing today, Tina? How's your week been?
So far, it has been going pretty well. It has been hot, hot, hot out here in Maryland, though. We're in the middle of a ridiculous heat wave. It's been pretty hot out there, though, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has been pretty hot, and I like to stay in, but I've got a lot to do and a lot of errands and things, so it gets crazy. But I just started an inhaler for my asthma, and that seemed to be helping out a little bit. So,
Oh, good. I was wondering if you were getting any relief from that.
yeah, my physical therapy is going a lot better just because I can breathe and everything. But I had my last physical therapy today. And then once I recover from surgery, then I'll probably start it up again because I didn't make a lot of progress because of my breathing issues. So I'll be back. But how was your fourth?
It was very, very good. We spent the week up or a number of days up at our camper up in the Finger Lakes area of New York. So it was nice. It was hot up there also, so we didn't get much of a break. It got a little bit cooler in the evenings than here in Maryland, but we didn't get much of a break from the weather, but it was still just nice to kind of get away and make new friends and just
Good.
kind of unplug and chill out for a bit.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. We had our 4th of July on the 3rd because two of my sons are home and they work. And so we ended up the 3rd was the best. But I got to tell you this story of what happened. So we had our 4th of July fireworks and everything on the 3rd. So I had physical therapy scheduled for 1 o'clock on the 5th. So my husband was home. So we were talking, we're sitting on the couch, and I went, oh crap, I have physical therapy at 1. And I look at the time and it's 12:45 and physical therapy is 12 minutes away. So I jump up as much as I can jump and I start freaking out. And I'm like, I gotta get dressed. So I run in the bedroom. I'm throwing clothes off. I'm getting dressed. I come out here and Ed's in the bathroom and I'm screaming at him going, we don't have time for this. You need to get out of the bathroom. I'm getting the dog in the kennel and all of this stuff. And my husband's like, are you sure that they're open today? And I was like, yes, they're open. And so we jump in the car and I said, I have to pick up my inhaler from CVS. So like that is even going to push us behind more. So they said I couldn't come back to PT unless I had that. So I call the physical therapist place and it went to a voicemail, which it's done that to me before. So I hang up before I leave a voicemail and I said, I'm just going to call them back and tell them that I'm going to be like 5 minutes late. Let's go get the prescription. And so we are getting ready to pull into CVS. And I realize it's July 4th. and not July 5th. And like I had some serious apologizing to do because I was like, I'm sorry, honey, that I yelled at you because you were in the bathroom. Like, I'm sorry
Yeah,
that and
sorry.
I and so we picked up my prescription and we went home and I was like the rest of the day, I was like, this is my life. Like this is what we live in. And oh my God, it was so bad because I like yelling at the dogs, you got to get in there. I hate being late. So this was a big one for me. I was not I was in
Funny.
panic mode major.
And he even tried to put that doubt in your mind of, are you sure they're open today? Now, had
He
he
should have
said, are you
said,
sure
yep.
they're open on the holiday? It
Yeah.
might have clicked.
Because to
So
me, I would because
don't
he
put the blame on my brother.
yes. So because he was off the fourth and the fifth, I thought he was saying, are they open the fifth or are they closed both days? Because he had the fifth off for the
Oh,
holiday as well. And so I completely lost it and I had to do some apologizing and all of that. But yeah, it was so bad. It was so bad. But we came back home and we repeated the next day and got it done. And we had plenty of time to get there.
and you had
But
your inhaler already.
yeah, yeah. So I had the inhaler. So but it's not a habit yet. Like they told
Hmm.
me, take it when you're going to go out of the house. Take it when you're going to be doing something, and I keep forgetting. So I'm in the corner of Kohl's taking my puffs and all of that.
Hmm.
But it is helping, so that's good.
Good. That's good. Very good.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and bring Michelle in. So, welcome, Michelle, to our podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Tired, but good. Just
Tired.
busy and trying to not be sick while I'm busy is always hard.
Yeah, I bet. Let's start here and have you tell us a little bit about yourself so that we can get to know you a little bit before we start talking about your illness and all the things that you're doing.
Yeah, so my name is Michelle and I am 34 and I live in Northern Ireland in Belfast, just around like Belfast. And I am recently married. So I've been married for I think it's 9 months this week, so it's still very new. So I live with my husband and we have two very crazy little spaniel dogs who are spoilt rotten and my little babies. And I work for a conservation charity. So I do a lot of stuff sort of outdoors, working for wildlife, climate change, and all that sort of stuff. And I look after their communications and events. So it's a great job and it fills a lot of my work time and also personal time because I love getting outside. So it's the best of both worlds.
Yes. Oh, it sounds like it. You're here to talk about PCD, which is primary ciliary dyskinesia. That is a genetic illness. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. When did you start having symptoms and start noticing that something was off with your body?
So I've always been a sick kid from like day one. Like I was born and I had constant ear problems. I had a lot of breathing problems. As a kid, they just said I had asthma, and that was kind of what they said it was. My brother also has very similar symptoms to me, but has never been tested for PCD. And so, although they think it's likely that he does because it is genetic, but I had worse symptoms. So I was always getting chest infections. I had tonsillitis every single year. I had ear infections all the time. So I was just pretty sick a lot of sort of childhood, but also quite active, which I think kind of counteracted the fact that I was able to like do stuff.
Mhm.
And then it started to get really bad as I hit my later teens, to the point where I was on antibiotics like every month. I just couldn't shake sickness. I was in and out of hospitals. And then they did a scan, just a full body scan to see what was going on. And they discovered that so the first thing was some people who have PCD also have situs inversus, which is when your organs are the wrong way around. So my heart is like on the right hand side instead of the left, but so like your lungs are reversed, like everything is just total sort of like halfway. So basically when you're forming as a baby, your organs turn 360 and mine kind of got halfway and just stopped and didn't go the full sort of 360. And that was the first sort of sign when they were like, okay, this is a bit unusual. On its own, that's absolutely fine. Lots of people have that and are no different. It's just a bit of a quirk. But add that with the recurring chest problems, and I also had really bad sinus problems. So I was getting sinus headaches. I was really congested, and I was in constant pain with my sinuses. It's like having a sinus infection every single day, like just every day of your life. And I'd had that I knew no different because that was just how I'd always been. And then when I was 21, they first mentioned PCD, but I only just got officially diagnosed this year. So it's been a really long journey to get there, but I've been treated for it since I was about 21 years old.
Okay. Okay. So they were pretty sure that you had it and went ahead and started treating you before you
Yeah.
got the official. So what was the test that gave the official diagnosis?
So it's a bit different here in Northern Ireland because we're a smaller sort of country, and although we have obviously our National Health Service here, so it's obviously a lot better because everything is paid for us. We don't have to worry about that, but we don't have the same technology and sort of specialists here as you would anywhere else. And so they just kind of ticked all the boxes of, oh, you've got the sinus problems, you've got the chest problems, you've got sinus inversus. We'll just say it's that. And that will be, that was kind of it. And the testing was still kind of being done in UK, but they couldn't do any official testing. They could do it, but they would have had to send me to England. And they kind of said, there's not really any point because it doesn't really do anything if you just know. We 99% know anyway. But now, because there's more science being done, there's clinical trials, there's treatments being done, they decided that actually 2020 was when I was meant to go. And then obviously the world shut down for 2 years. So it took ages to get there. So it's only now that they were able to finally get me over. It's also very hard because you have to be clear of sickness for about 6 weeks before you go for your appointment. It's really hard to tell your body not to be sick.
Right.
So every time I got close, it was like, oh, I had pneumonia. Oh, you've had a chest infection. Oh, we can't do it because your testing would come back. It could be inconclusive. And the test is a nasal brushing. So it's a bit like a COVID test where they put a little like test thing that like brushes some like cells from inside your sinuses, and then they rush that away to the labs and they do all the science bits on that to see what it comes back with. And that sort of confirms, along with all your symptoms, that you definitely have PCD.
Is there any type of genetic testing that they're able to do for that?
Yeah, so they do genetic blood tests as well. So the actual test process is you go and you speak with a specialist. They kind of get your history. They do the nasal biopsy, which is the main kind of thing because PCD is caused by the cilia in your body that doesn't work properly. So for a normal person, the cilia is the little hairs that line all of your organs, and they kind of move in a bit of a wave, and that brushes out like all the dirt and bacteria from your body. When you have PCD, you have your cilia just don't move, or they move very little. So instead of brushing all of that dirt out, it just gathers it and it just sticks to your body. So that's what causes recurrent infections. So the biggest indicator is when they take that cilia and they look at it under a microscope, they can see how that kind of forms. And then when you get your results back, it can tell you exactly what DNA strands are affected through your cilia. And then the blood test just confirms obviously the blood. I haven't got my genetic testing back for my blood yet. It's a longer process. But the cilia biopsy is the one that is the most important. The genetic one is just, it's if you want to go for clinical trials that you need to know what your genetics are from the blood to whether or not you're able to do them. But the cilia biopsy is the most important one to understand what your cilia looks like and how it's working. And mine don't move at all. So they just they have like little arms on them or very little arms and they don't do anything. They just stay still. So they're a bit lazy, is what they like to call them, where they just don't do anything. And so that means I get sick, obviously, a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
We thought we'd take a brief pause in our podcast to enjoy what I call a mini mindful moment. Now, mindfulness is, if you're not familiar with the concept, that is the practice of just being present in this particular moment in time. We're not thinking about things that have happened in the past. We're not thinking of things that are coming up. We're simply in this here and now. So I encourage you to join us on a little mindful moment here as I guide you through how to quiet your mind. One of my favorite techniques of that is simply become focused on my breath. So if you settle in, close your eyes, try to quiet your mind, and simply focus on taking a nice deep breath in through your nose, feeling it all the way down from your diaphragm all the way up, and hold it. And then release that breath through the mouth. One big, long breath out. And there should be no other thoughts going through your mind. Just simply focus on breathing in. Nice deep breath in through the nose. And hold it. And deep breath out through your mouth, releasing all that tension in your body, feeling yourself connected to nothing more than your body and your mind. You hear any outside noises, just simply push them away. Only concentrate on that breath. Deep breath in, hold it, and a nice long breath out. And if you find your mind starting to wander, just bring it back to focusing on nothing more than the process of those deep breath in all the way through the very bottom of your pit of your stomach, all the way up into your lungs. Nice and deep breath, and hold it. And a nice deep breath out. Simply quieting your mind and focusing only on those nice deep breaths in and a long breath out. And then take just a couple seconds, a few more breaths on your own. I won't guide you through these. If you find your mind starting to wander, just bring it right back to just focusing on the breath and nothing more. Give you a couple seconds to do a few deep breaths. And on your last exhale, nice deep exhale, and open your eyes and come back to the present moment and join us back on the remainder of our podcast.
What does your typical day look like as far as fatigue and sickness and all that? And what happens if you do get sick? Does it lead to pneumonia easier? Like, how often are you sick, and what happens when you do get sick?
So it obviously varies. I have good days and bad days, like most people do with an illness. For me, it can be anything from just being a bit more tired than most people, and I do get hit with fatigue quite easily. So we also use the spoons analogy. So I start off with 10 spoons at the start of the day on a good day, but on a bad day, I've got 2 spoons and I have my job to do. For me, being sick is it goes from one extreme to the other. There's days where I just can't get out of bed. And it's a real struggle to get up and down the stairs, to walk about. I'm out of breath, and I find it hard to talk. I'm really congested. To just days where I'm really tired and I just have no energy to do anything. I have a constant cough, so it's a bit like I've smoked my whole life, even though I have never touched a cigarette in my life. Um, it's a really deep cough, and I get really congested. So I start my day with physio. So I do my clearance of my airways every single morning and every night before bed. So that is like bringing up everything you possibly can in the bottom of your lung, which helps to keep it clear. And every so often, I don't really like doing it, but I do like a nasal irrigation to like clear out my sinuses. So that's using like a water bottle, like a sinus rinse
Mhm.
that just helps to clear it all out. I don't like it doing it too often because it's not fun, but it does really help if I am really congested with my sinuses. I had surgery about 8 years ago on my sinuses, which really helped to sort of like help drain everything. But I'll probably have to go back for that again in a few years. And I've had pneumonia every year apart from 2020. So the only year I didn't get pneumonia in the last 10 years was when the world stopped and I wasn't allowed to go anywhere because I didn't get sick. I
Yeah.
was at my absolute healthiest during the pandemic. I never had COVID. I didn't get sick. I had very little chest infections. I was great. And then this last year and a half has been my sickest yet. So I've been in hospital twice already in this last year. I had really bad pneumonia at the start of the year over like tail end of Christmas into January, and I had to take 8 weeks off work, which was
Mhm.
really tough to do. And my work are great. They're very understanding. It's very much health first, job second. They're great with that. But it's definitely been hard because I want to work, but some days I just can't. And that's hard to battle with mentally, I think.
Yeah. Boy, it sounds like your employer is really, it's kind of almost unusual to hear that they really push the health aspect before work, and that's really good. That's really good.
What type of treatment? How do they treat PCD?
So, again, it varies for everybody because PCD isn't a one size fits all. Everybody is affected differently. My treatment is my physio that I do twice a day, which helps to clear my airways. I take inhalers daily, so that helps to obviously keep everything okay. I've got a little pink one, which is always with me just in case. And so I have a pink inhaler, which is like a steroid inhaler that helps to kind of fight any breathlessness I might have, and then a blue one, which is in worst case emergency if I need to get a very quick release of that. And then again, treatment varies. So sometimes I will be on antibiotics just as a precaution. So I'll do a bit of a like try your antibiotics and see before it gets too bad, especially in the winter. And when I'm typically sick, I typically get pneumonia. October, November time is my worst time for that. So I start treatment quite early and I do like my flu jabs and I get COVID jabs and then just precautionary antibiotics and steroids to try and flush my system. And then when it's at its worst, I get IV. So I go to the hospital and they administer IV treatment that helps to clean out my system as much as possible and get antibiotics working quicker. And I have to do regular sputum samples for my doctor. So anytime I think there's a bit of an infection, I do a sample, they send it off to test what bacteria it is so they can treat it as effectively as they can. But as I get older and it gets worse, we're now looking at how we can change what I do because it's not really working anymore, which is why I'm getting sick so often. So now I have my official diagnosis. I'll be able to look at clinical trials, which will hopefully help, but also just a long term. So potentially nebulizers will be my next step, and I'll do a daily nebulizer. As it is, I only take them when I really have to. And so we try to avoid relying on them too much so my body doesn't get too reliant on them. But if it is bad, I can just go to the hospital and they'll give me a nebulizer there and then and send me home and hope that it does the job for a few days.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned you had surgery about 10 years ago, that helped. Now, that has left you with some hearing issues. Is that right? Can you kind of explain that?
Yeah, so the way PCD works is obviously your cilia is throughout your body. So for me, I get my sinuses, which obviously is connected with your ears, so all of those little tubes. So what I'm sure if you've ever had a sinus infection, you know, like it's all swollen, it's congested. Because I have that every day, my tubes are a bit swollen, sort of like between like my hearing and my throat and my sinuses. So when it's swollen, my ears are just done. Like everything's really muffled. It's really difficult. And especially now, hay fever really impacts that too. And I know typically I'm getting sick when I can't hear anything. So on a good day, I'd say my hearing's about 80%. On a bad day, we're maybe 30% where I just can't. It's really hard. And my dad was deaf growing up, so I have seen him go through being deaf he was just always deaf. And I know as I get older, I'll probably experience more of a hearing loss. And we are looking at going for some testing for potential hearing aids as it gets a bit, because it is getting harder as I get older. That the swelling's just not really going down, and it is hard to do your daily life when you can't really hear what's going on.
Now, does he have the PCD? Is he a carrier of that, or is it a different issue for his hearing?
His was just he's just always was deaf. He was born deaf.
Oh.
So we don't know if one of my parents has to carry it because it is genetic, but we're not sure who. And my dad's no longer here, so they think potentially it was my mum because my grandparents and my granddad had really bad chest problems. Like growing up, he had like a bad chest. That's what we always said. He had a bad cough. And so the history would probably go down like my mum's side of the family more than my dad's, because there was a few people with cystic fibrosis on that side of the family as well, and also just general chest problems. So that's probably where it comes from. And it doesn't really matter too much. I would like to know, just from a curious point of view, of whether or not it came from that, and especially for my siblings who all have their own little illnesses. But my brother's most like my own, but he's been tested for cystic fibrosis and he didn't have it. So potentially it's PCD. So I'm hoping to send him to do his testing next, just so that he's getting the right care. He's not as bad. His isn't like a daily thing for him in the same way, but he's a few things that linger that I just think he'd be benefits from being treated for it.
PCD has also affected your fertility. Can you talk a little bit about your journey with that?
Yeah, so my husband and I had talked about having kids when we first got together, and I had always been aware that there was a chance with having PCD that fertility might be a bit of an issue. So we were kind of like, well, let's just see what happens. And then nothing happened for 4 years. And we were kind of on the fence as to whether we wanted to have kids or not anyway. But I had spoken with my team who look after me, and they said, look, let's just refer you for IVF. And I'm obviously very lucky because here we have the NHS. And so I got a free go with IVF with the NHS here. So you can have up to 3 rounds, but obviously with IVF, it depends on what your eggs look like when you get them. And I think it's really hard because fertility doctors don't really understand PCD and how that impacts your fertility just yet. So they're just treating you like a person who is infertile as opposed to a person with PCD. And so I found it quite hard because I felt like they didn't really get what the problem was, and that what they were going to get me to do may not actually work. And I only had one go at this. So if it didn't work, which it didn't, then that was it for us. We weren't prepared to go and spend, 20, 30,000 pounds to try in the future. But we went through ICSI, which is obviously when they sort of take the sample from my husband and then my eggs, and they put them in the little test tube and they do their magic and then they put it back in. But it didn't work. And I've been to speak with other people who've said that it's always going to be hard with PCD because obviously the issue is with your cilia, it's not able to attach the egg in the same way as it should do, which is what the issues come from. So there is people who have PCD and have children naturally and it doesn't impact them whatsoever. And then there's other people like myself who are going to struggle. I think it's about a 5% chance of conceiving naturally. And we did the IVF, and I'm glad I did it because I would have regretted not taking the chance while we had it to do it, especially as I get older. I knew it was going to be harder the older I got. So doing it while I was in my early 30s as opposed to my later 30s was always going to be a benefit. But it's definitely something that they need to do more research into. And I know that they are. We had a PCD medical conference a couple of weeks ago there, and the fertility doctors were chatting about the research that they're doing to understand exactly how it works. So while I may not get to benefit from that research in the future, the next generation hopefully will, and they'll understand how they can make it easier for people to be able to get pregnant through IVF as opposed to that kind of wait and see if it works method, which it doesn't. So,
And you're talking about research. You currently volunteer at PCD Support UK. So how did you get started with that organization?
so I had reached out to them as just a person who was interested in learning more about PCD because there isn't much of a network in Northern Ireland. I don't know anybody else here in Northern Ireland who has PCD. Not to say that there isn't, but it's definitely harder to get in touch with them. And I
Mhm.
had been on Facebook and I had came across PCD Support UK. And I had just got chatting with them about just some support mentally because it's quite hard when you don't have an outlet and you don't have people who know what you're going through on a daily. And my friends and my family are great, but they're not going through it. So it was very hard to be like, it was when I had been really sick, especially. And I was like, I just need someone who understands what I'm going through. So I had been speaking to them on a personal just note about it. And then I had got quite friendly with one of the girls who at the time was sort of their head of communications. So she looks after all their social media and press stuff. And she had asked, would I be interested in volunteering? And so I said, yeah, no, I'd love to. My job is communications and marketing. That's what my background is. I'm more than happy to lend my skills and also try and advocate for people here in Northern Ireland to just be somewhere here because although it's PCD Support UK, it's very much focused to England and Scotland and Wales rather than Northern Ireland because we're all the way across that water, which seems so far away, but it's harder to reach the audience here. So I've been doing that for about a year and a half now. And it's been really great personally because I've got to learn so much about PCD. They were the ones who were able to help me get my diagnosis done as well. So they really pushed me to push to get that official letter to say that I had PCD. And they spoke to my doctors for me here. And they are so involved with the research in the UK as well. So they work very closely with the ones who do clinical trials to understand what works for the patients here, what we're asking for, what's the benefit in the long run. But importantly, it's that support network that if you are especially a parent with a baby who's just been diagnosed with what seems like a really terrifying illness when you've got a newborn baby who can't breathe, you need that reassurance of real functioning people who are living their lives as normally as possible, but still have a rare condition. And I think that's really nice. I spoke to many parents and been like, I still work, I still have a life, I still do what I want to do. I try not to let it impact my life. Of course it does, but it's that reassurance that not every day is spent in a hospital, in a bed, being sick. It's what you make of it. So my dad always had this rule at home that you don't let it get on top of you. So you just get up and you get on with it. And obviously you can't every day, but for the most part, it's mind over matter and you just get on with it. So I'll push through as much as I can. Sometimes it's not the best idea because I push and push and push, and then I end up off work for 8 weeks because I've told myself I'm not sick for 2 months
Mhm.
because I'm too busy to be sick. And then it catches up with you and it's like, oh right, no, I'm actually very unwell. And this one especially was a real wake-up call because I was very close to no return of pneumonia. It was a really severe, they said if I hadn't come in when I did, that would have been it for me. Like it would have been game over, which is really hard to hear because I
Mhm.
never thought about my condition as something that could kill me. And now I'm like, oh wait, that's very serious and I need to wake up and realize that if I don't look after myself, then that's it for me. And I think I'm very lucky that my job is so good with that. The minute I start coughing, they're like, "Are you sick? Do you want to be off? Like, go take the day, take a half day, go have a nap, come back when you're ready." And I work from home, so I can do that more than most. But I feel very lucky that I have people around me who really do look out for me and also tell me off when I need to be told off.
Did you know Spoonful of Strength is not just a podcast? We have an Instagram page called Spoonful of Strength where you can see clips of our upcoming episodes, learn about different illnesses, and we share other people's stories. We also have an Etsy shop where you can shop for clothing such as t-shirts and sweatshirts and hoodies. You can find candles and mugs and tumblers and blankets. You can find it all. We support all chronic illnesses, and the great thing is, if you find a t-shirt in our shop for multiple sclerosis, we can change that for lupus or Ehlers-Danlos or any other illness that you need. Everything is customizable in our shop. Use the code podcast for 20% off your entire order.
What type of support for those that are dealing with PCD does the organization offer?
So it can be anything from just asking questions. So if you have questions about what PCD is, how it's going to impact yourself or your kids or whoever in the future, to financial help. So we do a lot of stuff, especially for families who have kids that need to travel, and even for people my age as well. Like I had to travel from Northern Ireland over to mainland UK to get my testing. Now, my hospital and my doctor looked after the payment for that for me, so they covered all of my travel costs. But if I'd needed to, PCD support would have done that as well. So if you're really struggling or if you just need a wee bit of help, they'll pay for travel costs, they'll pay for hotels. When we had the cost of living crisis, which is still going on here in the UK, they give people money towards heating bills and putting food on the table because it's hard enough to be sick without worrying about how you're heating the house. And you can't afford to have your house be cold when you've got a bad lungs. You just can't. And we also do family get-together days. So it's not just families, it's kind of anybody impacted by PCD. We put on a full day for them to come along. They get to meet other people who have PCD. For parents, it's a real relief because they get to speak to other parents. For patients, they get to meet other patients that are just like them. And we do things like theme parks or going to like safaris, or it's just to get out for the day, to take your mind off it. And I think that's really important that you don't let it just consume you. And even just if you just need to ask a question, you can just email or message. And I do a lot of stuff on our social media channels. I documented all my diagnosis and from start to finish. So what did that look like? Because there's not a lot of information out there for people, and they want to know the silly things like, what do I wear to my appointments? What do I bring to the hospital with me? Is this normal? What will make me comfortable? What will make my kids comfortable? And we are there to provide that. So whatever they need from us, we're just a person they can speak to. And I think that really benefits a lot of people.
Sounds like a great organization. Now, how are you handling everything mental wise? Because having a chronic illness is difficult, and we all handle it mentally, maybe a little bit different, but how are you mentally doing?
For the most part, I'm good because I have people I can speak to. And my husband's obviously very good at like just listening. And if we've been moving house this week and he's been like, take a day, don't do anything, just take a rest. And I'm very lucky that he's very supportive that way. The biggest struggle I had was the IVF, which impacted me more than I thought it would going through that. And it was more that when you get told that's it and you've had your go, and we knew we were never going to go and spend all that money because I just felt like personally it was too much of a mental health thing to go through all of that. It's a lot of money to spend for a potential opportunity. And I just wasn't prepared to mentally put myself through that. But I definitely find I've struggled. Like our friends are having babies. We've just got married. So we get asked a lot, obviously, oh, when are you going to have kids? Like, what's next for you? And I'm like, and I'm very open. I will talk to anybody about that, but it's still hard. And
Yeah.
I find myself just going, oh, no, it's not for us. And there are times when I get frustrated because I can't go out and do the things. It's picking what's worth it. So if I have an opportunity to do three things inside that month, like this month we've been very busy and it's been great stuff. We've had loads of fun things, but I really felt the impact of that. And then I get really frustrated because I'm like, oh, I've got on well because I've went to a festival or I've like went out with my friends and I've done too much at once. So sometimes I have to say no to doing things I really want to do because there's something I want to do more. Or I'm really busy at work. And if I'm really busy at work, that means my personal life it's no to everything else because I can't put all my energy into everything. And that's where the mental struggle comes in with more. I don't like letting people down. And I think that's how a lot of people feel when you've got a chronic illness, that it's other people that get impacted more than just you. And it's a struggle. And I hate being like, oh no, I can't do that because I'm not well, because I once had somebody say, oh, she's always sick. And that was really hard because it's like, I don't choose to be sick. It's just how I am. I can't change that. But I've never let it be an excuse. So to have somebody make it out like it was, oh, she's always sick, don't ask her to go do something. And it's like, oh, that's hard. But I've learned now that those are not people you want to have around you anyway. So
Yeah.
just let them go. If they want to think that, that's fine. But yeah, the mental stuff is really hard. And there's a lot of support here. My doctors are very good. I've struggled with anxiety and depression in the past, and they're always very quick to make sure if I need more counselling or I want to go speak to somebody, that is there. And again, we have the NHS, so we're really fortunate that we can speak to people and it not cost us an absolute fortune here. If I need help, it's available. It's hard. Northern Ireland especially is lacking in mental health support. But if you've got a good doctor who looks after you, that's half your battle won.
Yeah.
And my doctors are great at making sure that I am first in that queue if I need anything.
Makes a big difference. Is there anything that you want to share with our listeners?
I think in terms of PCD, if you at all just advocate for yourself, advocate for your kids. Do not let a doctor tell you no. The thing that we always stand by is that the zebra analogy. So, they always say, obviously, it's not always a zebra, but sometimes it is. And if you think it is, push for that. Make sure you're getting the answers for yourself, for your kids, for your family members, whoever it is. Don't stop until you know that you've got it resolved, because that's the problem, I think, is that we get told, oh, it's not that, and we just let it go. Sometimes it is that. So just fight for yourself, and that's all you really can do. And don't let your chronic illness become your life, because you can still do what you want to do. It's just taking one day at a time.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Thank you for being on here. Really appreciate
No,
it. We
thank you so
really
much
enjoyed
for that.
having
It's
you.
great.
Yeah.
Very inspirational.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
I actually, I am always a sucker for Irish accents. So I honestly could have listened to Michelle talk much longer than what
Yes.
we interviewed her for.
Yes. She was such a
It's always
sweetheart. And I know this was right in the midst of her moving, and so I know she had just chaos around her, but we really appreciate her taking time to come in and join us today and to talk about her primary ciliary dyskinesia, which I had never heard of before. Had you?
I had never heard of it either. It's this journey that we have started together with the podcast is just opening my eyes to how many different things are out there, illnesses that you don't even realize.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would think that, an illness with like the lungs, that can be, I'm sure, really scary for her. The fear of getting sick, fear of getting, pneumonia or something that could be life threatening. She really,
Yep. And there was one, that instance where she said if she had not gone in when she did, that it would have been too late. So
yeah,
that definitely showcases the importance of prioritizing your own health. I feel like some people sometimes may struggle with feeling selfish when they have to prioritize
Yeah,
themselves, but you have to because it could simply be a matter of life or death.
definitely. And I appreciate the fact that she taking it further and volunteering at PCD Support UK and really trying to bring awareness to the disease, but to also help people with this disease. And it sounds like the financial and mental support, all of those things that they're doing over there. Thing I'm glad that people with PCD have access to. And I'm not sure if we have something like that in United States for PCD. I hope so.
Yeah.
I think I didn't realize just how much it impacted her daily life when she was talking about, her hearing loss. We all have so many different symptoms, that get us on a daily basis, but she just seems to have a positive attitude and really wants to help other people who are going through this.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's amazing that she has such a supportive employer as well.
Oh my gosh, I wonder if that's like
The norm for
normal
that culture. Yeah.
for Northern Ireland, but I know
in a
that,
lot of other countries, they value a work-life balance more so than we
yeah,
tend to here in the States, just in general. It seems
yeah.
to.
I think having employers that actually like tell you need to go home or sit down and rest or whatever like that is just unheard of, and I think that for many of us that have worked through chronic illness, I think that's like game changer,
Mhm. Yeah.
to be able to have the ability to say this is not a good day, or I'm having the fatigue today, and for them to be understanding is unheard of. But
Right.
it
And
probably means
they actually encourage her to do that.
yeah, probably means she's a very good employee, and they want to be able to keep her on. But just a wonderful interview, wonderful person. I really enjoyed talking with Michelle.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I wish her well on her journey, and
Definitely.
I'm glad we've made that connection.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that if anybody has PCD or just received that diagnosis, she would be a good one to talk with, as she seems really knowledgeable, even if you're not in the UK. To just get on Instagram. We'll link her Instagram page, and just to reach out to her for questions if you're going through this as well.
Yep. So our next episode, our Tuesday episode with Rachel and I, is the topic is going to be one of my favorites, on mindfulness and meditation. And maybe I'll talk a little bit about the benefits of nature connection too with healing. That's one of my favorite topics to to delve
It's going to be all
into,
you.
mindfulness and nature and making those connections and the benefits. So we'll cover that topic on Tuesday. So hopefully we will see you all then, and you'll pop on and have a
Yeah.
listen. And
I mean, I'm excited to learn because I can't focus enough to I've tried meditation, but I'm interested to see what you have to bring to the table, and excited to get started with that.
I remember years ago when I first started doing meditation, I did I didn't do mindfulness, but it was more like guided meditations or things like that. But I would try to meditate with Dave next to me. I was like, let's meditate together. And he was open enough. He's like, okay. And he would be sitting there perfectly quiet or, not making a peep. And I would be like, please just be quiet. And he's like, I'm not making it. I'm not saying anything. And I'm like, I could just literally hear I could just pick up on his mind racing. And I don't know why. So mindfulness is a little bit different. It's being more present, where meditation is, you can use some different techniques to help quiet your mind. And so we'll talk about that. And the nice thing about connecting to nature is that, it's not like you have to go out and go find a trail. That doesn't mean that you have to go out and hike or anything. And you could just, sit in your backyard and make that connection. So we'll talk about that. I'm excited about that. I'm excited about that upcoming episode. So join us on Tuesday for our next episode. Thank you for tuning in today.
Take care.